Monday, March 27th. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to change up the agenda just a little bit, and we're going to move the curriculum corner up to now so that the students don't need to stay too late. I'm sure they have homework and dinner to get to. So we'd like to welcome the Rogers Middle School principal, Mrs. Shipper, with the music teacher, Mr. Ewell, and Mr. Bergman, in showcasing African drums and music. Come on up.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for having me here. I am super excited to have Mr. Ewell here, Mark Ewell. He is one of our music teachers. Mr. Bergman could not be here with us tonight. And he has 6 students, 7th graders here with us. This is a new unit for us this year. We got the drums new this year, so it was our first time doing it, and they did an amazing job, and you'll see how cool it is. So without further ado, Mr. Ewell, come on up.
First off, I would like to just go ahead and thank the full committee board here for having us here tonight. Thank you guys again so much for having us here tonight. We're really excited to go ahead and showcase the drums. The drums, as Ms. Shipper said, are something new this year. You can see kind of on our slideshow, one of our music classes, having fun. In the curriculum, there was a number of things that we were taught through using the African drumming. Mainly, some of the biggest things was the history of West African drumming and percussion, as well as a bit of the culture and how musically influenced the West African tribal tradition is. We also developed the students' sense of tempo, their ability to carry part on their own, because in the West African traditional rhythms, the parts are split up, and you guys will actually get to see that in a little bit, where half the group is playing one part and half the group is playing another part, and they lock together. And lastly, the students learned to take a leap into soloing, as well as singing in a traditional West African language. And so, without any further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it off to some of our terrific students to explain some of the other slides.
Djembe comes from the phrase Ankeje, Ankebe. Name means everyone gather together. It is used commonly for events from the community. They gather in the center of towns or villages for parties and weddings. Created in modern-day Mali, West Africa. Each drum is made specifically for the pudding. Spiritual processes. Sacrifices are made to gods for permission to cut the tree that the drum is made of. Trees are seen as past ancestors living on in spirit. So the spirit is now.
Sorry. There we go.
Spirit is now inside the drum.
Oops. There we go.
The unique design allows for high tones and low bass sounds. The 3 main sounds are bass, tone, and slap.
Drumming is communal. Everyone must contribute, clapping, singing, playing, or dancing. By joining in, you are honoring the people being celebrated, the musicians, and your ancestors.
Now we would like to play you a traditional West African song, Cuckoo, from the Nubian tribe located in the forest near the Ivory Coast. Cuckoo was originally played as the women of the village danced with their fishing nets after they had come back from fishing.
And the lyrics are, oh yeah, play cuckoo for me. Oh yeah, play cuckoo for me. Salematsu is a name. A husband is praising his wife for a successful fishing trip, getting fish to feed their family.
All right, we're now going to play and sing the song for you guys. Ready? Concadiala mea mea o.
Concadiala mea mea o.
Sale sale matuyo.
Sale, sale matuyo.
Sale matu siga daramba 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 sale matu siga daramba e mea o.
Sale matu siga daramba, daramba, Drumba sale matu sing a drumba a and o.
Great job.
And that's what we have for you guys, so thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. I think
That's
that was the
awesome.
coolest thing that we've had here in a long time.
We're usually pretty boring, so that was exciting.
Right, that's much better than the budget.
Very cool. Nice job.
Thank you guys again.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
Awesome.
Do you want?
We're going to just give them a minute to clear out before we move along.
Yeah, we don't need the podium. Do you,
Do you wanna
is it okay if that stuff just stays?
Yeah, it can stay there.
Unless you want to take it out.
Maybe
It's up to you.
Maybe they want their morning.
Yeah.
They thought we'd start playing.
They did. They thought that was the lesson. Okay. I think
We
we're
should start
good.
every meeting with that.
I
some kind of
know.
music.
Awakened.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Shepherd.
very cool. We'll move on to this school budget public hearing. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing for FY '24 budget.
Motion to open the meeting. Second.
All those in favor? That's a motion. Start time is
6:37.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start by just talking about some relevant demographics, just so that folks have an idea of who we are in the Rockland Public Schools, because we've been changing over the last few years. So this slide that you're looking at now shows our total enrollment from FY20 through to FY24. It has stayed relatively consistent. It has dipped by 2.85%, but if you look at the FY23 to 24, you'll see a gain. So I think we've stayed relatively stable. I anticipate a slight enrollment boost in the fall, possibly from the opening of the Phelps, but we'll see. But I do anticipate that our total enrollment has stayed relatively stable, and I think it'll continue to do so, if not grow. What has changed, however, is the number of English language learners, which has increased by 69.18% since FY20, nearly 70%, and quite a substantial jump in FY23 to 24 of 26%. And I use this example just to try to make a point that if you're a third grade teacher and you look out into your classroom and you have 3 students who are there who don't speak any English, that changes your job, and it changes your classroom, and it changes everything. So this has been a tremendous challenge for our teaching staff and our support staff. It has resulted in changes to our staffing, and we've prioritized English language learner instruction and English language learner tutors, and so it's something that we're very proud of. I think we're doing a very good job
in this regard, but it has been quite a substantial change. The other area that has changed is economically disadvantaged. We are up by 33.5% since FY20. Just the FY23 to 24 numbers just short of 7%. I will say that some of this, the economically disadvantaged numbers, I think has to do with our accuracy of reporting and counting. I think we've become much more accurate in our assessment of who is in the Rockland Public Schools in our reporting. So I think that may have something to do with it. But our demographics are changing, and that too has an impact on curriculum, instruction, and everything that we do. So I just want to point that out as I begin the budget presentation. If we go to the next slide, hopefully. There we go. What you're looking at in this slide is our Chapter 70 allocations from FY20 to current. I want to point out that FY20 was COVID, when COVID began. And then if you look at FY21, if you remember, we had to sort of reinvent ourselves and become a school that not only could serve students in front of teachers, but also at home. So we went through tremendous changes in FY21. FY22 was another transitional year, and then this year I think has really felt like our first normal year back. But as you look at the Chapter 70 allocations across the board, what you see are two things. One, the state recognizes our changing demographics, and they have given us more money as a result, which is a good thing. And also want to thank the town, because they've continued to be very good partners with us, because when Chapter 70 comes in, it doesn't come right to the school, it goes to the town, and then the town and the school department work out what percentage of that we get. And we've been very good partners, and we appreciate their cooperation. The thing that may surprise folks is that our total employee number has actually gone down. So we had 372 total employees in FY20, and currently we have 364. So we're down by about 2.15%. And also to point out, if you go back to FY20, one of the things that we did when COVID first came out that I think is notable, and I'm sure many of our employees will remember this, is we furloughed approximately 170 employees at the start of COVID. And that saved the district a total of $1.4 million, which we were able to roll forward and use as we were sort of preparing for this cliff. The other thing that happened in FY20, 21, and even 22 is the infusion of federal dollars, but one-time federal dollars, so grants. So we had to add staff, and we had the money to add the staff, but at the same time, we were always looking ahead, realizing that that money is going away. That is not operationally stable, and so we've always been operating with this sort of worrying, what are we going to do when this grant money dries up? So we have been preparing for that, and we began preparing for that by furloughing all those folks back in 20. And so I think everything that we've been doing since 2021 and so on and so forth has led to where we are today, which is in a fairly good place. So I'm very pleased to report that. Anything else that you would want to add to that? Okay. Moving on to the next slide. There we go. Another interesting thing to point out about our budget is how we pay for staff. So in FY20, you'll see we had 359 employees that were paid from our general fund. In FY23, that number is reduced to 337.
My apologies, that's a typo, that's 377.
377.
Yep.
Okay, so our grant-funded employees have increased, and our general fund employees have decreased. So that just, again, is the result of all the infusion of the federal money and state money supports.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's not a typo, it was broken down, I was looking at the total. That is an accurate number for the general fund employees.
Is there anything
My
else you
apologies.
want to change before I go on?
No, sorry about
Okay,
that, sir.
all right, there we go. The one thing to point out here is you'll see this number 25 under FY '23, relief grant employees. We need to find a way to fund those employees between now and the time that that grant money is gone. So that is what we are currently working at, but that's just something to be aware of. But I think the general public understands that we get money from the state, but we also operate on grant money. And when we present our budget, when I show the next page, we're showing our grants and our state and federal money. So if we go to the last page, which is our budget, if you look at the bottom, I think one of the most important numbers to look at is the $893,877. That is the deficit. That was our estimated budget deficit at the start of the year. We instituted a hiring and spending freeze, and we remain fully staffed, but we instituted a spending and hiring freeze. And through that and attrition, so retirements and other people leaving and then not replacing, we have cut our deficit to $162,355, which is a number that we can currently live with. The other thing to notice about this slide is the relief grants and circuit breaker and how we're using that money to help support our budget. So as presented, what I will be asking for later in the meeting is for the school committee to vote a total budget of $34,219,248. But we won't vote now, but we'll vote under, I believe, old business. Any questions?
Crickets.
That's okay. Anything you want to add?
No.
Okay.
So the highlighted is just for FY 2024, not 25, mostly? Like.
Correct, currently in FY '23.
Yeah.
So in FY '23, by implementing the spending and the hiring freeze, we're able to take that 1.3 million under relief grants and save some of it to move over and to use, that's the remainder of ESSER 3 that'll be left at the end of this fiscal year that we have to use in next year's fiscal year, or it goes away. Right, so in FY '24 starts July 1st, and we need to use all of that 750,000 in that year.
And you don't expect there to be an ESSER 4, right?
We do not.
Okay.
No, we do not. Could there be some extension of the timeline that you're allowed to expend? Perhaps, but I don't believe there's any more
Funding. Yeah, I
relief
believe the
coming.
governor said no more, like, the state of emergency of COVID or
Yeah, they're
whatnot was
ending it.
ending, so.
The state is under the same guidelines requirements that we are for expenditure of federal funds by the close of, I think it's September 30th. It's either September 1 or September 30th of 2024. Whether or not they release additional monies to the local municipalities under the money that they have left that they need to expend as well, no one knows. I will know that the supplemental budget that the governor just submitted 2 weeks ago did include money for free lunch.
Oh, that's good.
To
Which is
continue
good.
free lunch, through not just next year, but the next year. So how they were able to do that from an accounting perspective with that funding source going past the September 24 date is something I'm interested in finding out, but I don't anticipate any more relief. I think, I expect a pressure to expend the relief money that exists.
And we've known this was coming, that's what Dr. Cron called it, the cliff. We knew, we were sort of watching it and holding on to it, piecemealing it out, knowing.
But this year, we're relying on half of what we relied on last year.
Right.
Which is a significant move in the correct direction.
Right.
If I want the public to remember three things from this presentation, it would be this. Number one, that demographically we have changed over the past 10 years, and I want them to understand that. The second thing is, in this budget, we are showing not only the money that we receive from the town and the state, but we are showing our grant money. So we are showing everything. And then finally, I want the public to understand we have not grown our number of employees, and I think that's important. I've said this before jokingly, but I'll say it publicly. There's a belief out there that schools are like dogs that will eat until they're sick, and that they will spend and spend and spend and spend and spend. And I want the town and everyone else to understand that we take our fiscal responsibilities very seriously, that we safeguard their money, and we care very much about how we're spending it. And if anyone ever has a question, please just call my office, and I'm happy to sit down and explain anything about our budget at any time. So that is the budget presentation.
All right. Any questions?
Just want to, I think you sort of talked about grants and the money that we're getting. The teachers do a lot of that on their own as well. Is there a way to capture, I think middle school science had a grant or something. Is there a way as part of this money just to show that the teachers are looking for ways to get resources for their classroom? Do you break out any of that to say, of
Sure, I
$1
can
million,
give you- that is-
300,000
that-
was from, things that the teachers submitted themselves or something like that? I just was curious because we do often hear about grants from Rockland Education Foundation or elsewhere in the state or federal areas. So I just was curious because it's not like from the town, that the staff is trying to improve the schools as well. So I was just curious.
Absolutely. I think you actually, in the financial reports, I think you have, in the financial reports that came with your packet, I believe you have the science and technology grant that was initiated.
A lot of line items.
Correct.
highlight
That was
them.
initiated by the middle school.
Yeah.
By the middle school staff. And then the Rockland Educational Foundation, I can certainly get you
I
a
was
breakdown of that
curious.
amount and how much. And other than that, it's our title grants or Title I, which is
Entitlements.
Yeah.
the entitlement grants, the IDEA grants, and then the recurring. So our recurring grants are approximately $1 million.
Yep.
And the recurring grants are now less than, which is good, than our recurring grants.
It's a relatively small percentage
Okay.
of the budget. I think for the public, I think it's important to understand sometimes the federal government or the state, when they think about how to deliver funds to schools, they have a choice. They can just give it to us, or they can make you go through a grant process. And so, grants are a way for them to give us money with strings. And so we're constantly seeing grants that come across the board, but sometimes those grants are not aligned with our priorities. But we look at every grant and try to take advantage of them.
Thank you.
No other questions? Any public questions for anyone in the audience? Dr. Harrison? No? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the school budget.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. We'll go back into our regular school committee meeting with the acceptance of the minutes for the meeting of March 13th.
I just had one change to the minutes. It says February when it should be March in the first line there. And
And you are initialing it, so
Yes.
everyone saw that,
Yeah.
what she's saying? Okay. We'll go with, I'll entertain a motion with that.
motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, with that correction in there. Acceptance of the meetings, and then under audience, we'll go on to reports. Financial reports for February, the school department, Rockland High School student activities, and the Rogers Middle School student activities.
3 motions to approve?
And 3 seconds.
All those in favor? That's a vote. And thank you all for putting those together for us as we discussed about them tonight. We'll go on to Department of Reports for January and February. We have art with Mrs. Thompson, athletic with Mr. Kimball, computer technology with Mr. Wells, Dean Mr. Damon, English 9 through 12 with Ms. Donovan, foreign language with Mrs. McAllister, the library with Mrs. Kemp, math 9 through 12 with Mr. Casagrande, the middle school with Mr. Griffin, music with Mr. Piazza, radio TV station with Ms. Breeden, science with Ms. DeCanzio, sorry. Social studies with Mr. McAllister, daycare with Mrs. Tate, special education with Mrs. McGonigal, and health and physical education with Ms. Newcomb. 16 motions.
16 motions to approve.
And 16 seconds on all the good stuff that is in those reports. There's a lot of information documented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a vote. Okay. And we went on to Curriculum Corner. We'll head into old business with an update from the Phelps Elementary School.
So our only update that I have is we had our Zoom meeting last week, and they're still reviewing and going over the punch list. I believe there was about 30 items left on the punch list, give or take. We're up to spending $72 million, and as most of the residents know, Memorial Park has been demolished, and that's the only updates that I have for that.
Is it all gone? I don't think, is MP all gone yet? I don't think so. I think it's a
they're
lot of
still
gone.
hauling.
Yeah,
Parts
there's
of it
still a lot
away.
to do, but
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
It is kind of cool, though, if anyone wants to drive down and see it coming down.
yeah, it's
you know.
moving in the right direction, I
Right.
should say.
And they said 6 months left to go for the
6
project,
months.
which after such a long progress of trying to get it there, to only have 6 months left is impressive. Any questions?
I know in that 6 months, obviously, the students and staff have to move out of Jefferson, so we're targeting sometime in July for Jefferson to be demolished as well?
Yeah, the abatement process, I think, depends on what they find
Okay.
when they start tearing things down.
Yep.
I'm sure there's quite a bit of asbestos throughout the building.
And communication to neighbors and everything will go out as part of
Yeah.
the process.
It'll be a nice park when
It
it's
will be.
finished.
The Park Department will be very happy to get their hands on it, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to completed fundraisers. We have the Rockland High School Hockey Boosters did Rally Up for October and November, and they raised $6,929.72. Congratulations for that fundraiser, that was exceptional. And we'll move to the 2023-2024 school calendar for approval. It's our second reading.
Motion to approve?
And a second.
All those in favor? Okay. And policy updates for approval, second reading.
Motion to approve policy updates?
And a second.
All those in favor? And then, donations. Do we have something under donations?
Yep, this is an acceptance of 3M, give a $4,000 donation. We wanted to bring it to your attention. Part of the new policy and procedure manual that you just approved does state that donations should
Right.
come through the school committee. However, that is true, but since we use again, we fully disclose all of our revenues. You'll note we include revolving accounts in our revenue projections. So it is not, it will not be necessary for us going forward for every donation that we receive, $15, $20. People
Right,
write
here and
nice
there, right.
checks, someone passes away. Well, we always acknowledge them to you, but you will not have to vote on every donation that the school committee, that the school department receives, but we certainly want to make you aware of all of them.
Okay, awesome, thank you very much.
So if you, on this one, I would vote it since
It's
it's.
right after the
Yep.
policy. So a motion to accept the 3M donation for $4,000.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
I will send a thank you note.
Thank you. Thank you for the thank you. All right, now we're on to the FY24 budget for approval. So we are voting as presented for the $34,219,248.
Motion to approve?
And a second.
And that is for the FY24 budget. All those in favor? Great. Moving right along, on to new business, request for fundraisers for approval. We have Jefferson is Carousel Skate Night for March 25th, 2023. They also are doing a Singo Bingo in December, players dine-in and take-out in December, and a bingo in April.
4 motions to approve.
4 seconds?
All those in favor? And that's a vote. And we'll go on to summer camp flyer for approval. This is the Rockland Daycare Summer Program that will be at Phelps this year. Any comments?
Nothing to
Anything to add, Dr. Cron?
She has worked very hard.
Very
to put this
excited.
I know.
together.
I was going to
Looks
say, I don't
amazing.
remember this
Very
program
exciting.
or
Yeah.
as organized as it is, I guess,
And
or
really
laid out.
embedded with enrichment,
Yeah.
activities which also can, assist in what we've all gone through with COVID. And there's grant money available that helps us summer grant money available to us that helps us to pay for some of that enrichment.
It is outstanding, so I wanted to shout out that to Director Marissa Hoadley and her team. Just the options, morning programs, gardening for beginners, pop, crack, and fizzle for STEAM, for science, little chefs, Legos. I know South Shore Taekwondo is coming, kids yoga, Jungle Week. I mean, it goes on and on. I couldn't believe it, reading it. So thank you all for doing all of this for our children for the summer. When mom and dad are probably going to head to work, the kids get to go somewhere fun, right? So thank you for that, for putting that together. So we will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the summer camp flyer.
Second.
All those in favor? That's a vote. Rockland High School 2023-2024 Student Handbook Proposed Changes presented by Principal Dr. Harrison. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight. I just want to take a moment to thank the Senate Leadership Council, which consists of about 20 students that represent different organizations throughout the school. I went through this process with them, as well as the Site Council, which consists of the faculty, student representatives, and the parents. So I have gone through these changes, and both groups have supported them. There are really 3 big themes for next year's changes. There's more changes than I usually have, but it's really not that much. The first theme is the vision of the graduate changes, which you've already approved and looked at. That went into the program of studies, and that's what you see on pages 1 and 2. What it basically does is take what we put in the program of studies into the student handbook. As a reminder, that includes the electronic portfolio, which is an additional credit for graduation, which will be 23 credits, starting with the class of 2027. And that portfolio has each student demonstrating proficiency in each of these skills in the vision of the graduate. So that's pages 1 and 2. Page 3, that's the second theme, is attendance. We had an attendance committee this year. It's really not a major change. The big shift in the policy, we're removing what's at the bottom and we're adding what's at the top. The spirit of it is that we presently take away a credit after 14 unexcused absences, when you get to absence number 15. This proposal is basically taking away a fourth of credit when you're over 14, and a half a credit after 21, 3/4 of a credit after 28, and 1 credit after 35. This policy is a little bit more aligned with other schools with this tiered system. It actually allows us to focus on the students that are really excessive absences, which is really over 25. So it'll let us tackle the students that are beyond 25 a little bit closer. It's also less punitive. There are opportunities to recover credit through online coursework, which we work with students. So if a student's passing class, we never want to see them lose a credit due to the attendance policy.
Right.
We'll work with any student, and we work with them through the summer. So we've never had a student lose credit because of this policy, because we always work with them as long as they do the work. The second piece in the attendance policy is we did add this line in about no students being allowed to enter the school after 9:30 without a parent escort or medical note. We have found more students just showing up at 9:05, 9:10 after the phone call's gone out, and parents are surprised that their students aren't getting there on time. So we added that in as just, if you're going to be late without a parental notification, it really should be within the first 30 minutes, but this gives them up to an hour and a half at least. That's the attendance policy. Page 4 has the bell schedule. It's the same times. It has we're starting we're starting a little bit later, 15 minutes later next year, so the times do take that into account. But it's the same bell schedule as we've used for quite some time. The only difference is the rotation is different. So the one thing that stays the same is G block at the end. That's called a static G block, and then it's a full rotation with a static G. The reason is G is at the end because of work study, senior privilege, and then we have some shared staff with the middle school, the chorus band program. Full rotations tend to be well received amongst staff in particular because they find students benefit greatly when certain periods are at different points in the day. I asked the student leadership group what periods are the hot spots for learning, and they would tell me, and they were right, second period and third period. First period's always tough, and fifth period after lunch is always tough. So that's this is going to help student learning, and I think it's going to impact how teachers plan their lessons, because if they have something period 2 and 3 in their class meets during that time, I think that's a great teaching day where they may find doing the assessments on the other periods may be a better strategy. The students are going to have to get used to the different lunches every day because there'll be 6, 7 different lunch schedules, so that will be the challenge. Page 5 through the remainder. So the third theme, I said there were 3 themes. One was vision of the graduate. Second was attendance. The third theme is the handbook, conduct section. So pages 5 to 19 all talk about conduct. All of these changes are coming from a new law or regulation that was passed in November, which was a disciplinary law, which was called 37H and 3/4, and revisions to that law. The summary of that law basically says, this is me summarizing, you can't suspend until you've tried alternative remedies. So what we tried to do with our handbook changes as we went through this new regulation is we tried to say, let's not have 2 languages. Let's not have the Rockland High School handbook language and the state language. Let's just use the state language so that families that want to go online and look at the state website, it'll match the handbook conduct section pretty much identically. So as you see any of these definitions, that's right from the state regulations. We used to have different definitions, so it just makes sense to match.
Right.
You'll see tables in here. So you'll see a summary for each of the laws, which is 3/4. And then when you see the 3/4 summary, you'll see the whole thing on page 6 about the alternative remedies that have to be tried before you suspend a student out of school. And then you'll see a table. This table, Mr. Damon, Ms. Paulding, and I spent a lot of time on. We wanted to show the public that we give an alternative remedy before we suspend out of school. So in that chart, it tells you what the alternative remedy we always try first is. That chart goes on for a few pages. And then there's a section on page 9, which is called 37H and a half. That, again, is from the state language. That talks about if a student has a felony charge, you can keep them from school if their continued disruption or their presence would be a disruption or detrimental effect on the welfare of the school. That language is right from the state. That's nothing changing really there. The disciplinary law did not change for 37H and a half or 37H. 37H applies. That's on page 10. If a student were to get expelled potentially, because those are the real serious offenses like weapons and stuff we don't really want to talk about.
Right.
There's a table, which I think the public will like, on page 10. It just summarizes each of the laws in our own kind of simple language. So those were the changes we made. On page 11 through 18, we wanted to make it more readable for families. So if a kid did get suspended, if you look at the current handbook, where do I go? How do I use it?
Right.
So it has a flow now. It has definitions, a summary of each law, and then it has the procedure. So if a student was suspended, we first notify. So you'll see the notification section. Then we do emergency removal. You'll see the emergency removal section. Then a short-term suspension talks about what a short-term suspension is, long-term suspension, appeal, and then the last part of it is what happens if you get suspended, how do you get educated? So it's called the school-wide educational plan. So we changed the whole flow so a parent could, or a student could follow the process from start to finish, make it more readable versus getting frustrated by some contradictions that may exist. So a lot of information here. I'm happy to go into more depth because I kind of just did a quick summary, but I'm happy to go into more details.
So I noticed as I was reading through it that it was so clear and concise, and that it was user-friendly as a parent and a school committee member. I sort of went through this and was like, it really does make, it's almost like a menu, and that's how you made it, so I appreciate that. And that table, I was fascinated with, that you really could just see what happened and figure out what was gonna go on. So thank you for that, because I'm sure, you know, in the heat of a moment, you're getting the phone call, and now you need to know what you're doing, and that just broke it right down, so thank you for that. Any questions or thoughts besides me speaking?
Out of curiosity, how many students have over 35 or high numbers of unexcused tardiness or?
I can tell you 55 students are participating in credit loss right now. So credit loss right now, anybody over 14 unexcused absences. We have 55 students over 14. Over 30, you're probably looking at 10. And
Okay.
of those 10, they're probably 9 of them are failing every course. They're struggling academically because they're not here, which is why
Right.
we want to put such an emphasis on attendance. These are just unexcused absences, so we do have some students who are absent 35 times, but they're excused as an ongoing medical condition, but they stay up to date with their academics. This policy does not apply to them.
Right.
And you are working equally as hard to get those kids as the excused kids, so we appreciate that. Any other questions, concerns?
No?
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the handbook.
Motion to approve?
And second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you.
Thank
And your
you.
team, Dr. Harrison. It came out great, and our students that were involved in it. Thank you. And we're moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Crum?
I have nothing to report,
Nothing.
nothing.
Is that a first?
Well, I could go on and on and on, but I won't bore you.
The drums, that was
Yeah.
it. Now you're speechless.
Well, girls' basketball team is inspirational. I'm inspired. I was inspired by their season, by the way they handled themselves, but I'm assuming maybe
That's on our list.
one of you may have more to say about that, but I was really inspired by them. They're a very impressive group of young ladies, young women.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cron. We'll go on to our public service announcements, and I will go left to right. So, Ms. Ransome, I'm sorry, that's you first. She looked up like, oh, no.
Oh, no, because I'm going left, right, which one? You know, I attended the classic, Shamrock Classic, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It was my first outing into one of the school events, and it was very fun to watch. Kudos to Ms. Shipper and the group. It was good.
Yeah, it's always a fun take.
Yeah.
Ms.
I
Hennessy?
agree. No, I did not play. I got to cheer on my son as an 8th grader, so it's definitely a great tradition. I can make announcements next, I
Go
guess.
ahead,
All
you
right.
can. She's finished.
I guess wanted calendar updates because it's before our next meeting. Half day on April 6th, no school on April 7th, which is a nice long weekend for both staff and students, leading into sort of the Easter weekend there. 10th grade MCAS is coming up tomorrow. So rest of the high school has an adjusted schedule if you're not in 10th grade, so hopefully you all saw that from Dr. Harrison. And then nothing about fall sports, but I know spring sports are kicking off, so there's fundraisers and practices and all the good stuff, so good luck.
All right, thank you. Ms.
My
Davidson?
turn. Yes. I'd like to congratulate everyone that was involved in the Addams family play this over the weekend. I heard it was a great success, and I know it was well attended by numerous groups. The town meeting is coming up. The date is slipping my mind at the moment. And then the cleanup day is April 15th, and we are accepting all volunteers from all different types of groups, and we will sign community service slips. So 9 a.m. at the town hall.
All right. Do they need to reach out or just show up?
Just show up.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Ms. Davidson, the most involved school committee member. And then we will be going to present at FinCom the budget tomorrow evening, so I will be attending that with Jane and Dr. Cron. I wanted to bring up, I saw this on the Memorial PAC Facebook page, so that's why I'm reading it off of my phone. Rockland Public Schools will extend the 2023-2024 kindergarten registration through April 6th. Incoming students must be 5 years old by September 1st of 2023. Please contact Denise Taylor at 781-878-1367 or by email dtaylor@rocklandschools.org to make an appointment for Tuesday, April 4th or Thursday, April 6th between 9 and 3. So thanks MP PAC for putting that up for me to read tonight. And that is all I have as well. Any questions, comments, nothing else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
And second.
All those in favor? And that's a vote. Thank you, have a good night.